Imagine stepping into a crowded room. The air is filled with conversation, laughter, and carefully measured expressions. Everyone around you is wearing a mask. Some are smiling, some are frowning, but none reveal their true faces. You try to look beyond the masks, to see the real people behind them, but their expressions remain frozen, strategically chosen, perfectly controlled. Now, imagine walking into this world without a mask. No deception, no pretense, no carefully crafted persona to protect yourself. You speak with complete honesty. You act with pure sincerity. You offer kindness without expecting anything in return. How long do you think you would last? Would people admire your honesty? Or would they see you as weak? Would they embrace your sincerity or take advantage of it? Would they respect your kindness or push you away? Because the truth is, the world is not always kind to those who refuse to play the game. And that is the tragic fate of Prince Myshkin, the protagonist of The Idiot by Fyodor Dostoevsky. A man of pure heart, unwavering honesty, and boundless compassion. And yet, rather than being loved for these qualities, he is ridiculed, manipulated, and ultimately destroyed. But this is not just a story from 19th century Russia. This is our world today. A world where deception is mistaken for intelligence, where kindness is seen as naivety, where those who refuse to wear a mask are often the first to be cast aside. But why? Why does society reject true goodness? And if choosing to be good leads to suffering, is it still worth it? That's the question we're about to explore. And by the end of this discussion, you may never see kindness or the world the same way again. To understand why the world rejects true goodness, we must first understand Prince Myshkin, the man Dostoevsky dared to call the idiot. But here's the truth. Myshkin is not an idiot. He is not foolish. He is not naive. In fact, he is deeply intelligent and profoundly empathetic. What makes him an idiot in the eyes of society is something else entirely. His refusal to deceive, manipulate, or act in self-interest. He is a man who always speaks the truth, even when it makes him vulnerable, gives without expecting anything in return, even when it costs him everything, sees the best in people, even when they betray him. And yet, rather than being admired for his honesty, he is mocked for it. Rather than being loved for his kindness, he is exploited because of it. Rather than being embraced, he is pushed to the edges of society until he is ultimately broken. But this is not just the fate of a fictional character. Look around the real world. How many times have you seen kind-hearted people taken advantage of? How often have you trusted someone only to be betrayed? How many times have your own acts of sincerity been met with suspicion or ridicule? Prince Myshkin's story is not just a tragedy from a distant era. It is a reflection of human nature itself. Because here's the painful truth. What society claims to value is not always what it actually rewards. We say we admire kindness, but do we? We say we respect honesty. But is that really what we reward? To answer this, we must take a hard look at what society truly values. And why, in the real world, strategy often triumphs over sincerity. If we claim to value kindness, honesty, and integrity, why do we reject those who embody these qualities most purely? The answer lies in cognitive dissonance, the psychological discomfort we feel when confronted with the truth that contradicts our beliefs about ourselves. When people encounter someone like Prince Myshkin, someone who is unshakably kind, completely honest, and endlessly forgiving, They are forced to confront their own moral contradictions. They may say they admire kindness, but when faced with true, unconditional goodness, they feel exposed. It makes them realize how far they have drifted from their own ideals. It forces them to question their own compromises, their own selfishness, their own justifications. And rather than accepting this uncomfortable truth, people do what they often do. They reject the person who reveals it to them. This is exactly what happens to Myshkin. He does not judge. He does not criticize. He does not try to make people feel guilty. Yet, simply by existing, he forces them to see the parts of themselves they wish to ignore. His sincerity highlights their deception. His kindness exposes their selfishness. His goodness reminds them of the moral compromises they have made. And so, rather than embracing him, they push him away. Now, think about how this plays out in real life. How often do we feel uncomfortable around people who are too good? When we hear about someone who is truly selfless, do we admire them? Or do we secretly think that's unrealistic? Do we sometimes look for flaws in genuinely kind people, searching for proof that they are not as pure as they seem? Why? Because accepting their goodness means questioning our own choices. And that is an uncomfortable realization. This is why society does not elevate people like Myshkin. It isolates them. Dostoevsky understood this truth about human nature, and it leads us to an even deeper paradox. If true goodness is so rare and so powerful, why does it often lead to suffering? To answer that, we must look at how power and survival shape human relationships. If goodness is so valuable, then why do those who embody it struggle to survive? The answer is harsh but undeniable. The world rewards power, not purity. Throughout history, those who rise to the top, whether in politics, business, or social circles, are rarely the ones who are purely good. Instead, they are the ones who understand human nature, who know when to be ruthless and when to be charming, when to tell the truth and when to deceive, how to manipulate others while maintaining the illusion of sincerity. This is exactly why Prince Myshkin is doomed from the start. He refuses to lie. He refuses to manipulate. He refuses to seek power. Instead, he offers love, trust, and compassion, qualities that should make him beloved. But instead, they make him an easy target. He is ridiculed for his honesty. He is mocked for his innocence. He is used by those who see his kindness as weakness. And in the end, he is destroyed. Not because he lacks intelligence, but because his goodness makes him vulnerable in a world built on competition and self-interest. Now, let's step out of fiction and into reality. How often do we see truly kind, honest people being taken advantage of? How often do we hear stories of good-hearted individuals being betrayed by those they trust? How many times have we felt foolish for believing in the best in others, only to be disappointed? This does not mean that the world is entirely corrupt, but it does mean that pure goodness, without caution, struggles to survive. Even those who consider themselves good people often find that to protect themselves they must be strategic in their kindness, hold back their honesty, learn when to compromise their values. And yet, despite all of this, we still long for figures like Myshkin. We admire those who remain unshakably good. But here's the question: if kindness leads to suffering, why do we still admire it? The answer lies in something deeper, something unseen, something that cannot be measured by success or failure alone. And to understand it, we must uncover the hidden power of goodness. If goodness often leads to suffering, then why does it still hold power? Why do people like Prince Myshkin, who seem so out of place in a world driven by ambition and self-interest, continue to exist? Dostoevsky does not present Myshkin as simply a victim. Yes, he suffers. Yes, he is rejected, but his goodness is not powerless. It is transformative, because true goodness does not fight. It does not demand. It does not manipulate. It simply exists. And by existing, it forces those around it to confront their own nature. Even those who mock Myshkin cannot erase the impact he leaves on them. Even those who betray him cannot forget him. Even those who reject him are changed by him. Why? Because pure goodness acts as a mirror. It reflects back to people the parts of themselves they try to ignore. It challenges them, not through words, but through presence. It forces them to see what they could be if they were not afraid to be good. This is why history remembers figures like Jesus, Socrates, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr. Not because they were celebrated in their time, but because their goodness endured beyond them. They were not always rewarded. Many were persecuted, rejected, and even killed. Yet their impact remained. Because true goodness does not need validation to be powerful. And that brings us to the final, most important question. If goodness is not rewarded, if it does not always lead to success, should we still choose it? Dostoevsky gives no easy answer, but what he does offer is something even greater. If kindness leads to suffering, is it still worth it? If the world does not reward honesty, should we still be honest? If society rejects those who refuse to deceive, should we still refuse to wear a mask? Dostoevsky does not give us a simple answer, because there is no simple answer. But he does offer a profound truth. Goodness is not about winning. It is not about survival. It is not even about being recognized. It exists because it is the right way to be. Prince Myshkin never regrets his kindness. Even when he is mocked, betrayed, and broken, he does not wish he had been different. He does not become bitter. He does not try to conform. Because true goodness does not need validation. It does not require admiration. It does not demand reward. It does not measure itself by worldly success. It simply chooses to exist no matter the cost. So, should we still choose to be good, even in a world that does not seem to value it? That is a question only you can answer. But perhaps the real measure of a life well lived is not in how much we have gained, but in how much light we have brought into the world. No matter how small, no matter how unnoticed, and maybe, just maybe, choosing goodness, despite everything, is the most powerful act of all. Because in the end, the world may not always reward goodness, but it will always remember it.